your housing needs. And just in case you're planning weddings or birthdays or any type of celebration, be sure to use Sophie's Food Bank. They have delicious meals from continental to local meals as well. You can reach them at 0205 793 951. And make sure you tune in every Saturday at 6 p.m. prompt on Metro TV for the Homeowner Show. You get all the exciting and educative information, conversations surrounding building and construction as well, right here in Ghana and beyond. And if you want to sponsor or partner with the Homeowner Show, make sure you call or text 0243 272753. And make sure you like, comment, and share. If you're tuned in right now, share, share, share. Share the program to others at Metro TV Ghana or Homeowners TV GH. Now, during this conversation, if you have some questions or comments for our guests, make sure you text 0243 272753, and I'll be sure to answer all your questions. And now I want to introduce our guest for tonight. Sitting right next to me, Mr. Charles Amisa Kumson. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And we have Miss Patience Okran.
Yes.
Nice to see you. Looking
here.
lovely today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure being on the show.
Fantastic. Folks, we're going to get right into it because this is, a very complex conversation. However, tonight we're going to break it down and make it very easy for our viewers. But before we do, I want to briefly summarize a statement that your company put out on January 27th. And that statement was about enforce building laws and modernize construction practices for a safer Ghana in 2026. And I want to just touch on a few points here. The laws exist. Enforcement is what is missing. Ghana is not short of legal and regulatory frameworks. Folks, we do have frameworks here. Enforcement is a statutory duty, not a matter of choice. The enforcement of building regulations is not discretionary. It is a legal obligation. The human and economic cost of weak enforcement, the consequences of inaction are severe and in some cases deadly. Institutional accountability must be non-negotiable. The Ministry of Works and Housing must strengthen coordination among regulatory agencies and ensure that national policies translate into measurable action at the local level. All right, I think I've said a mouthful already, and you'll see on the screen we have the actual statement there for your viewing. But before we talk about the statement, I want you, Mr. Charles, to tell me, what is Architecture Alliance?
Okay, so Architecture Alliance is a professional association of architects, and together with urban planners and allied professionals in the construction industry, which was set up in August 2025 as an advocacy platform and a think tank organization to do research, public advocacy into matters of the construction industry. We realized that there needed to be a voice to supplement what was already in the system. So that was what birthed the Architecture Alliance.
Wow. So this essentially came out because you saw a need for the construction space to be a little bit more structured, organized, and enforced as well. And so, Ms. Patience, tell us, what is your role at Architecture Alliance?
Thank you. So first of all, let me forgive you for trying to change your name. Like you rightly said, I'm a co-founder and then president of the organization. Like you said, it's a CSO, and we are basically trying to make sustainable impact on the built environment. I'll say that, yes, it was registered last year, but it's something that has been in our spirits for years, because as architects, we've been out of school for at least 10, 15 years. And we've all seen the issues. Traditionally, we've had the professional bodies representing us, They've done their best, they keep doing their best, but we think that there needs to be more voices in the industry speaking to these issues. And we need to go beyond sitting on shows, talking, going to AGMs, talking. We need to act. And I always say that I love Holy Child School's motto, facta non verba, actions, not words. So that's one of my mantras, and I'm hoping that beyond this, we can move it to the action plan stage.
Well, all right. Well, I love your motto, and I think we had someone on the show last week that also was from Holy Child and did close with that motto. So I think we all know it by now.
Yeah.
You know, action is key. But before we get more into the conversation, I want us to watch this video that outlines some of the issues that we see in the real estate space.
Residents of Klagon were thrown into fear and shock after the three-story building collapsed early Wednesday dawn. The incident quickly spread across various platforms, attracting the attention of both local residents and emergency service providers who were on the scene to bring the situation under control. The anxiety among the residents was glaring as they recounted the incident.
The
foundation of the building was not constructed properly. They only excavated a small area before beginning construction.
I
was shocked and surprised. Like, I didn't know. Before, I was thinking it was this building. So when we came out, everywhere was blur. We didn't, for like 10 minutes, we couldn't see anything.
We hope that incidents like this do not occur again. Many structures in this area have similar issues. We have reported these concerns to the authorities, but no action has been taken.
Director of Man-Made Disaster at the National Disaster Management Organization, Maxwell Emmanuel Nebe, stated that the building lacked structural integrity, which likely contributed to its collapse.
Assessing the place and looking at what has happened, you will see that the building had no integrity at all. You can see it from the debris on site that the constructions were not well done, and so it's obvious that such a building will collapse.
Member of Parliament for the Tema West constituency, James Eno, stated that the assemblies need adequate support to enhance monitoring efforts and prevent incidents like this in the future.
We need to reinforce our institutions, especially the assemblies, to have that capacity. Sometimes they don't have the necessary capacity, they don't have the necessary equipment to be able to undertake this integrity exercise as far as our structures are concerned. So it's important that we strengthen our institutions so that they have the capacity to undertake these exercises. Otherwise, our lives will be in danger.
Municipal Chief Executive for Tema West, Lukwek Tai Totome, announced that the Assembly would initiate an immediate investigation to determine the circumstances surrounding the incident.
So how soon are you going to commence investigation into this issue?
Immediately now.
Put together a committee?
Yeah, well, I would put together a committee, but I've asked the engineer to give me an initial briefing as we speak now. So he's on it. He has also contacted the Engineers Association, so they are also on their way here.
This incident occurred just a week after a similar collapse at Roman Ridge, raising concerns among the public who believe that authorities must implement stricter measures to prevent such occurrences.
What a tragic scene we just witnessed with the collapse of that building. I know you haven't been able to perhaps do your investigations on the ground, but from your professional perspective, why do you think that buildings are collapsing right now, and why are we seeing a lot of these demolitions, despite the fact that, you know, we mentioned in the statement that we do have regulatory frameworks? So despite the regulations, why are we seeing that buildings are collapsing? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so let me start. This is one that happens quite often. I remember the very first time I had an encounter or got to hear of this buildings collapsing was the OA terminal at the time in Kumasi, which at the time was a terminal for travelers and also buses to park. When these issues happen, we have lives that could be lost and investments that could have just gone down the drain. And almost every time it is this rhetoric from the authorities that we're going to have investigations. We are going to see what happened. And if you compare other countries who are putting up higher buildings, and we have our 6-story, 5-story collapsing, then it is not a matter of individuals, but we have to look at our systems. As you said initially, your introductory remarks about registered professionals handling construction. It is one of the problems we have in the industry, where almost everybody who has money can become a developer or a contractor. The laws are there to protect or to ensure a safe environment, but the enforcement is where we've always lacked. I brought these 2 books here, the Ghana Building Code and National Building Regulations, all contain some strict laws that if they are enforced, we should not be having these issues. But who enforces them? You see, for construction, it is not just an event, it's a process. It commences right when you acquire your land, when you dream of what you want to build, when you bring on professionals. And even how you select your contractor for your project is very key. Does the contractor have the capacity to even build what you have has been designed by your professionals? And even during the course of construction, what are the quality checks that have been put in place to ensure that what has been designed is being followed through? Most at times, private developers will want to save some cost by avoiding the use of professionals. In fact, even without the use of professionals, the building regulations allow for the municipal assembly, district assemblies to have periodic checks, inspections on as the project goes on. You sign off, then you can move. But these things are not happening. You heard from the MP capacity of the municipal assemblies. Do they have the financial capacity to have their vehicles move around the district to ensure that all buildings that are coming up, because a lot of buildings are springing up these days, can they go around, ensure that the right thing is being done? Even their personnel, do they have the capacity to, when they go there, to ensure that the right thing is being done? These are discussions that we need to have as the construction sector, because a lot of people are putting money into real estate as their investment, and we cannot watch on whilst buildings collapse and it's seen to be normal. No, it should not be business as usual.
Right. So, Patience, he believes it's a systemic failure, right? Do you agree with that, or do you think that these are isolated incidences, and that if you look at the holistic picture, most buildings are not collapsing? Maybe this is 1 or 2 buildings. So do you think it's a systemic failure as well?
Yes, I agree with him. Like you're saying, we can just count a few. It's that, like he mentioned, it started with the OA. If there were some previously, I'm not too sure about them. Yeah. But we can't say that it's just a few. 1 is enough. 2 are enough. If it goes beyond 2, 3, then for me it's becoming systemic. And I want to go back a bit to the causes of the collapse. I want to talk about the direct reasons why the collapses happen. And I'll say that it's basically when the structure fails. And the structure is like our skeleton. That's what's holding the body up or the building up. So once the structure collapses or fails, that's when a building collapses. And there are quite a number of things that contribute to that. One of the things that we need to look at are the materials. A lot of people don't even know that cement has a shelf life. In the right or conducive environment, cement shouldn't last more than 3 months on a shelf. And lots of people don't know that. Beyond 3 months, it loses its quality. So that's one thing. Some people also don't know that when it comes to iron rods, on the market, you probably go asking for a 16 mm iron rod, and they'll give you something less than that. So these are some of the things that cause collapses, and these are things that we need to look out for as individuals, developers, and all that. he mentioned the regulations, and he mentioned the building code, but he didn't show it. So I want to show it to viewers. This is a huge, huge book. Huge book that people
Who is reading this book?
I know. That people have sat together and compiled. And when you go through, it contains so much. It's talking about, in the statements we mentioned, modern construction practices and all that. Something like sustainability is mentioned in this book. But at the end of the day, if nobody's enforcing it, then what happens? And it starts from the design stage, like he mentioned, to construction and even beyond. At the design stage, are you procuring the right professionals? First of all, you need an architect to do the design.
Right. I want to go back to something you stated, just so that we as developers, we as individuals building our own private homes can make sure we get this. You mentioned that the cement life is only 3 months on the shelf. Is there an expiration date written on the cement bag? Like, how can we as consumers determine whether it's over its shelf life or not?
So typically they don't put the expiry date on the cement, but they put the manufacturing date on it.
Okay.
So that's where you need a professional to help you.
Okay.
Because we know these things.
Well, now viewers, we are professionals. We all know that 3 months after the manufacturing date, do not buy that bag of cement.
And let me also add that cement comes in different strengths. So for instance, there's 32.5 or 32,
42,
and then there's 42. So those are for different uses. So 42, for instance, the super strong is for concrete, and then others, the other one can be for plastering and other light, construction works. But a lot of people don't know that.
Okay. So these are all great tips that we need to take into consideration, but I think the key thing is to just get a professional. But for those of you who want to build your own homes, you should be taking good notes tonight. So that's one thing. Now, because this is an educational platform today, and you want to ensure that, first of all, people are aware of certain things, and then certain things are being enforced, what are some other tips outside of the building materials? You were talking about hiring a professional architect. As opposed to, what are people using as opposed to an architect? Are we using ChatGPT to draw houses now, or what are people using?
ChatGPT, Pinterest, Draftsman, and the so-called architects in the system.
I see.
They call themselves architects, but when you actually investigate, they are not.
Okay.
Because they've probably gone to some design school or something, and they think that they can design, because everybody thinks that architecture is just putting together lines. But we don't go to school for 6 years for nothing. There are so many things that come into play when you're designing.
Right.
You're looking at orientation, thinking about the movement of the sun, east to west. We are looking at ventilation, lighting. We are looking at even your lifestyle. If you come to me that you want a 5-bedroom house, I'm going to ask you, what do you do? Do you have kids? In the morning when you wake up, I need to know what you do so I can help you design. Maybe I'll give you an open kitchen because you don't cook, the Ghanaian kind of food, or I'll give you a closed kitchen. So these are all things that we think about. Sustainability is now big. We think about all that. But people think that we just go and draw lines and so anybody can come in. We also look at making sure that we don't, provide spaces that go waste. And I see that a lot in designs from draftsmen. And all these add up to the construction cost. And people think that by going for these people, they are saving costs. But eventually, I have had to learn it the hard way, that if you are doing something, do it well once and for all. Because at the end of the day, you're going to pay for it anyway. So first of all, the professionals, architects. Then secondly, you cannot build a house without a structural engineer. I always say that the structure is the most important part of the building. We do the aesthetics, the flesh and everything. Then the structural engineer comes in to do the structural engineer, the design. That's basically the columns, what we call the pillars, putting in the iron rods, the beams, the slabs. Basically they do that. So these two, extremely important. Do not build houses without us.
So, there was a building that collapsed recently, and they were professionals cutting corners. So professionals do not negate the fact that the building will stand and not collapse. So the main thing is enforcement, right? We've got to enforce it. We've got to regulate the construction industry. So how do we go about that? Is criminal charges one of the ways or fines? How do we ensure that safety measures are being taken?
So first of all, even getting the professionals for me is just one of the steps. You need to ensure that you are dealing with the right professional. So we have regulators for architecture, for engineering. We have the Architectural Registration Council and the Engineering Council that regulates professionals. So as a developer, as someone who wants to build, if you intend to get a professional, you need to ensure that whoever you are engaging is one that is registered and has renewed his license with any of these agencies. Now, one thing that is also missing is most of them is basically paying your annual subscription and it is renewed. We need to take it a step further. Professionals also need to improve their game, basically. We need to undertake continuous professional development.
Continuous education.
Yes, and this is where the professional bodies must really come in to assist the regulators. Because there are modern trends in building now, but some engineers and some architects continue to get stuck with the old ways of doing things. But there could be new ways, there could be sustainable ways, as Irama mentioned, because these days, the lands that people are even buying are not as big as before. So it puts a lot of also pressure on the architects and the engineers to ensure that the dream of the client is fulfilled. And in so doing, it's not just getting a professional, because as she said, she will design to suit your lifestyle. Most times, these buildings that collapse, one of the things that happen is, as construction goes on, there are a lot of changes. I've worked on a project before that started with a 3-story building, and all of a sudden the client was demanding to add another story to it. And no amount of advice would this client listen. And sometimes even how you position your air conditioning pipes, your plumbing pipes, can affect the positions can affect the structure. So when you have a project and you have all these professionals on board, sometimes developers feel that having professionals on board is expensive. I look at a building that has just collapsed and the amount of money the person may have pumped into it. What is it that you can't get? And even if you don't want to get it, the laws are there that says that if I open the building regulations, you will see that for a building of a certain number of stories, the developer must ensure that he has a building professional on the project. But that rarely happens unless it may be a government project or a World Bank project but the private developers who are mostly doing a lot of construction, most of them ignore these things. So it's a systemic thing, as I said earlier. Professionals need to be involved, but also the professionals also have to up their skill, because at the end of the day, there's what we call the duty of care. And even if it is not stated in the contract of the professionals, by law, it is imposed on every professional, whether you are an architect, engineer, or a contractor. You have to be diligent and work with reasonable skill and care.
Yeah. So, it sounds like you have really touched on, key points in regulating the construction space. You've talked about ensuring that we have professionals, ensuring that there is continuous education to make sure that they are aware of all the new and modern technologies, sustainability, etc. These are all key regulating factors. Now, enforcement. I think enforcement is the main thing. So, Ms. Patience, tell us how this could be enforced. And you mentioned also having the capacity to go from site to site to site. I think this is where you can look at private and public partnerships, because they are building inspection schools out there that are training individuals, but they don't have the jobs. So it looks like the jobs are available and we just need to put the two together. But we talked about regulation. How do we enforce it now? Start off with the building material. We know now, we're educated, right? but how do we enforce that aspect and then move along the value chain? And tell us a little bit about your thoughts on enforcement.
So when it comes to enforcement, I think there are two things. One is enforcement, getting the authorities to do their work, and then two is accountability. Now on enforcement, like he mentioned, or I know, at every municipality, they have a building inspectorate unit. So ideally, before you do setting out, somebody has to come to site to check. Before you do the foundation, somebody has to come. But obviously, it's not happening. Maybe it happens, but not as often as we expect them to. And so we have these issues happening. I'm very happy that you mentioned, private people coming in to help. And that's one thing we discussed just yesterday. So what we need to do at this point is not accept that in Ghana, nothing works. We need to come together as professionals, as people who want the best for the built environment to have a discourse and come up with solutions. I just did a ChatGPT search, and I got a lot of options. I mean, they may not probably apply in Ghana, but if we look into it, maybe it would work, One of the solutions I came across was the fact that somewhere in some of the Western countries, every building has to be insured. And so the onus is on the insurance company to ensure that they are doing the right thing. Maybe that's something we can explore. Maybe it won't work. But to accept that in Ghana nothing works, that's for me is a problem. And TAA...
Well, let's touch on that point in terms of building insurance. There is building insurance in Ghana. We do have insurance companies. So why isn't that happening?
But it is not mandatory. Then I moved to the accountability bit. We heard, when we played or we watched the video, we heard I don't know, he was an engineer or something, talking about the fact that they'll do an investigation into it and blah, blah, blah. Do we ever hear anything about what happens after those investigations? I know that after the Melcom issue, I think, the professional bodies came together, GIA, the Engineers Institution, they came together, did a research into it, came out with the report, which I don't know if it's been made public yet. I'm not too sure about that. But beyond that, what happens? I dare say that if we start bringing people to book, we will see a change. Because if at the end of the day, a building collapses, nobody, is brought to book, everybody goes on business as usual.
But there are some buildings that collapsed that received approval. Is that corruption there, or is that lack of enforcement and accountability? What do you think is happening there? Because it was approved.
So the permit process is just one of the events that happen during construction. After acquisition of the permit, there are certain conditions that the developer must meet. So you can get the permits, you could have your drawings designed by professionals, but what is happening during construction? The changes that are happening, who is monitoring them? The concrete that is being cast, the iron rods that are being purchased, who is checking to ensure that you are buying the right thing? I was happy when you were really sticking out for a developer at the beginning of the show. Most people buy houses, and at the end of the day, for real estate development, at the end of the day, they have to pull almost everything down and build from scratch. These are buildings that could have had permits. But what happens during the construction period? I have never worked on a project that changes have not happened. The clients are always asking for changes, no matter how long you have sat with them to do the designs at the initial stage. But during the construction, the building inspectors will have to come and check what you are doing. If you have a professional, they are checking. There are laboratory tests we undertake to ensure that your concrete, the strength that we are asking for, we are checking to ensure that you are meeting the strength. Most of these buildings don't undergo those strenuous events. So you can have the permit, all right, but if you don't monitor to ensure that the conditions of the permit and the quality specifications that have been put out in the designs are being monitored, we will still continue to see this.
I didn't realize there were lab tests to check how strenuous.
Yes. Yeah, there is.
Even iron rods.
Even iron rods, you can go to the Ghana Standards Authority.
And these are all extra costs, I imagine.
Exactly, yes.
And give us an idea of the cost of this, because somebody watching is thinking, you know, I already have a budget to build, and now you're telling me I have to check the strength. Shouldn't you, whoever made the building material, ensure that it's strong enough? Now, why do I have to go and test what you should have tested?
No, so as you are saying, construction is not like buying a car from a garage. You are buying so many materials and you are putting them together in different proportions. Now, there is no guarantee that the one doing the work is actually doing the right thing. So we put in these quality assurance methods and to control the process. Because at the end of the day, you can have block work. Meanwhile, you intend for some of your designs to be load bearing with some of the walls. All these have to be engineered, and we have to be ensured you are doing the right thing. So yes, most clients, as you said, may not have budgeted some of these costs in their project. But if you are dealing with a professional who understands how to manage construction projects, they will ensure that you have some of these items in your budget items. And that's where the problem is, because most people, even you are lucky to even have a client who has a budget. Most of them are building without budgets.
Wow.
They are of the belief that
by faith.
Yes, by faith. It's God that builds. So they are building even without a budget. And that is when things become expensive, they decide to say, oh no, let's take this out. Let's take the iron rods are too many in the building, let's reduce it.
And that is what ends up creating some of these.
Exactly. Most times it's happening. Oh no, you are putting too much cement in my building, reduce it. They are doing too many iron rods, reduce. But all these have been designed by a professional. We are not looking at earthquake zones. We are looking at so many things that can happen. All these are accounted for.
Do we have earthquake zones here?
Yes, around the Makati Hill areas,
wow.
areas. These are noted for earthquake zones. So when you are designing or you are building, having a development there, you really have to be careful and ensure that you are seeking the right.
So earthquake, flood zones. Yes. What else in terms of natural disaster should we be looking out for here? Just earthquakes and flood zones?
Mostly in Ghana, these are the issues that we have not had the hurricanes to disturb us. And even the earthquakes, they hardly happen there. But all these, most of the time, professionals who account for it, because you never know when they will happen. But these days, flooding is becoming a part of us now.
Yeah. You see, you mentioned earlier about the Ministry of Works and Housing and the local government taking responsibility. But the reality on the ground is they don't have the capacity. They may not have the resources. So how do we go about the path of enforcement where the capacity and resources are not there?
So that's what I was saying earlier, that we cannot just accept that that is our situation, so we are not doing anything about it. What pragmatic steps have been taken in the past to ensure that we can get people out there on the field? That is what we need to be doing at this stage. We shouldn't be the typical Ghanaian. That's just what happens in Ghana. You go on a construction site and you tell a laborer to do something a certain way, and he goes like, oh, Sane, that's our mindset. But we shouldn't be comfortable where we are. We need to have the will, first of all, to want to see change, and then move beyond wanting the will and putting things in place together. Because, I mean, it's been done in other countries.
Yes, so what are some, because we need to come up with solutions maybe, because sometimes I realize in this environment that the reason why things are not moving forward is, one, people don't know how to make it move forward, or two, they don't have the capacity and they need help. So a situation like this, maybe volunteers. Yes. If we get volunteers from maybe architecture schools, real estate schools, to go out there and do something like that if we don't have the capacity. So sometimes we may need to be able to give these type of ideas. But we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about more ideas and more practical steps that we can take and come together and develop our nation. We'll be right back.
What if owning a home in Ghana was no longer a dream, but a plan you can start today? This March, the National Home Ownership Fund invites home buyers, developers, financial institutions, and industry stakeholders to come together at one powerful destination, the National Home Ownership Fair 2026. For 2 days, discover affordable housing solutions, flexible financing options, trusted developers, and expert guidance all in one place. Whether you're planning your first home, expanding your portfolio, or shaping the future of housing in Ghana, this is where opportunity meets action. Join us 4th to 5th March 2026 at the Ministry of Gender Old Office, Accra, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day. Are you a developer, financier, or industry player? This is your chance to connect, showcase, and be part of Ghana's housing transformation. National Home Ownership Fair 2026, building pathways, unlocking ownership, securing Ghana's future, one home at a time. For enquiries, call 020-294-9875 or visit www.nhf.gov.gh.
All right, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions for our lovely guests here tonight, please make sure you text 0243-272753. We're talking about all these buildings, unfortunately, that are collapsing and deadly in some cases, and how enforcement and regulation is key. So I was just talking with Ms. Patience here, and we were talking about some ideas, maybe involving some of the youth, some of the volunteers, those who are already showing some significant interest and have education in the real estate space. What are some other things that you think could be implemented, Patience, to help enforcement? And regulation as well, and yourself as well. Feel free to chip in. Yeah.
Okay, so we have registered architects, we have registered architecture and engineering firms. We spoke about capacity.
Yep.
It is time the local government opens up to the professionals. It is quite clear that they cannot, with their resources, do all the supervision of the projects that are going on. Take AMA, take TMA, take Ayawaso West Wagos, just in Accra. Look at the construction or development that are going on. But they are registered professional firms within these. We need to be creative about it. It is time we start aligning or affiliating some of these firms to the assemblies to help them. You spoke about people who are interested. Yes, we can look at all of this. We cannot leave the work just to government. But government, the works and houses, the local government should open up and get some of these professionals firms. Because trust me, some of them are even looking for jobs. And this is an avenue to bring them on board and assist, because it's a better, if we have a safer country, it's good for all of us. Another thing we have to look at is, it is time we start digitizing some of the things we do. Our permit processes. We should not, at this stage, be carrying so many drawings to the assembly for people to spend so many hours. These things should be digitized by now. We should.
That's a very good point.
Professionals, and these days, almost every professional is using computer-aided drafting for their work. So it's easy to convert these drawings to whatever format. If there's a portal, these things are submitted, they go to the assemblies, it is vetted, and responses are given. We were discussing this, I said, I don't even understand why at this stage, people should even pay for permits over the counter. These are things that should be paid to the bank account of the assembly. There should be some accountability in the system. So we need to also look at that. Also, the drawings that are going to the assemblies, the regulations require that they are authenticated by professionals. When the drawings get to the assemblies, how do they verify that these designs are actually coming from professionals, it is also a problem because our registers, because our professional body, the Architect Registration Council, publishes a register every year of architects. Do the assemblies have visibility on these registers? And even if they do they check to ensure that these designs that they are receiving are coming from them? So these are some things that we can put in place. And the bottom line is we should understand that construction is not a cheap endeavor. Per my experience, the least cost today that you can even spend on a 3-bedroom house is a minimum of 500,000 Ghana cedis, aside purchase of land. So we should not make construction a venture where everybody just goes into because he or she has money. It should be a high-risk venture, and that is how it should be. It's just like opening pharmacies and opening hospitals. We should ensure that whoever is going into that space, because we are dealing with people's investments, people's they've saved for about 20 years to put up a building, and this happens to them. People may have lost their livelihood, their lives, property, and how do you start all over again?
Yeah.
Can I come in there with
sure.
another solution?
Let me just summarize, and then we'll let Ms. Patience come in. Those of you taking notes here, we need to look at digitalization and I think blockchain technology, making sure that everything that passes through cannot be tampered with, etc. And then we talked about having the volunteers. Please do chime in.
So still on the digitalization, I'm glad he mentioned it's concerning submission of drawings, but we could actually use it for building supervision as well. Yesterday we were talking about the possibility of having national service,
personnel
going to sites. Instead of them going to direct traffic, why don't we use them? And then the issue came up, maybe they will not be well equipped, So how about we train them? Even if we don't trust them enough, how about we digitalize what they do? Are we probably going to give them, I don't know, cameras to record what they do, something? So that's another thing we can look at doing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Having some sort of cameras around it. Well, they're around anyway because of CCTV cameras, watching the various sites. And so that could be passed on to law enforcement as well. Now, we've talked about buildings collapsing. I want to touch briefly on demolitions before we take questions from viewers. I see all the questions coming in and I'm going to address all of them. Now, why are buildings being demolished, right? It kind of brings a lot of mistrust in the system. You have built your building, you're living in your home, you've gone to work, you come back from work, and there are people at your building ready to collapse it. As you watch the video, you'll see all these buildings being demolished. Why are they being demolished after people have spent years building them?
So that's a very important topic for discussion as well. So basically, they are demolished for a number of reasons. Concerning the recent one at Chado, I understand that the people built in a buffer zone. So definitely, you're not supposed to be building there, but you have. We have people building in waterways. Then we have issues with flooding, and everybody's complaining. So that's why the demolitions happen. But should we wait for the people to build so we can demolish? That is the issue here. We have, like I said, the building inspectorate units at the municipalities, and they have people going around for inspections and all. We have some of these people taking bribes and looking on for people to build.
Let's repeat that, because we want to make sure we understand how people are building in waterways, people are building in roads and that sort of thing. How do they get the building permit to start off with?
Some don't get building permits. There's no way, as far as I know, that you'll go to a municipality for a permit and they know very well it's in the waterway and they'll give it to you. Because what they do is, when you go there, they check all these things. They have a planning team that checks, aside the works department that actually checks the building itself. So they have the planning team to make sure that, first of all, you are building in a place that is zoned for what you are building. So if it's residential, the area should be zoned for a residence. If it's not zoned for a residence, you can apply for a rezoning. Then they change it to probably commercial or whatever it is you want to do there. So if people are doing the right thing at the assembly, that will not pass. You not get a permit for something like that.
If they are doing the right thing.
Yes.
So there's a possibility they're not, because if we look at the way things are laid out, you can find a nightclub in a residential area. You can find a restaurant in a residential area. So how are we having residential properties with commercial properties? There's somebody who has a farm across the street from their home. So is zoning enforced here?
Yeah. Well, I can speak to some of these ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me not get carried away, folks. Let me focus on the demolition. Please continue,
But,
babe.
you know, it's even possible to have a like a club in, should I say, a residential area, but you need to put in measures like acoustic measures to ensure that the sound is not all over, parking to ensure that you're not, you know, infringing on somebody's rights, you know. So yeah, they look at all these things before they give the permit. But in some instances, with some of these demolitions, the people who are supposed to be doing the right thing, ensuring that you don't build there, just look on. Like I said, some people take money and look on, you know, and so that's what happens. And in some instances, from what we have heard, you get influence of, you know, high-ranking people, even if you're trying to do the right thing.
Right,
Yes,
right.
to look on.
Okay. I'm going to take questions from the viewers. We have Pizza Real Estate here in Texas, USA. Hello there. I'm loving the show and learning. Great show so far. Thank you so much for tuning in all the way from Texas. Hey there, this is Nana Aquia Watin from Pantang. Hi, Nana. This is a very interesting show. Everyone must watch again and again and again and again. Thank you. This country is clothed with all the laws and regulations, yet we go run in circles and nobody is taking responsibility. We shall come back to discuss this topic, sad topic again. Charles Okine from Adabraka. Hello, Charles. Thanks for tuning in. Kofi Yeboah, watching you live on the Graphic Road. Hello, Kofi. I'm enjoying and learning from the program. My question, has there been anyone prosecuted ever from these building collapses? Show me one and I'll keep quiet. Can you show him one?
No, we can't.
Keep talking, Kofi Yeboah. My name is Thomas Lawson in Hacho. Hello, Thomas. I'm sad that this country has all the laws and yet we continue to see news of building collapses all the time. That is why we're having this show, to educate people and to encourage enforcement and regulation. Dr. Asante Adams, hello, sir. I'm asking, what's the work of Ghana Standard Authority in all these incidences? I'll let you answer that in 30 seconds as we are running out of time.
Yeah, so as I indicated earlier, the Ghana Standard Authority have laboratories for testing the standards of materials that are on the market. In fact, those that are coming into the country, they are the port of entry to ensure that we have the right materials. And also when you are in doubt, you can always take the materials to the Ghana Standards Authority for testing. But as an authority, we also believe that they have to go a step further and ensure that we have safe building materials in the system. I keep telling people that when my first time in Europe, I couldn't charge my laptop and my phone because almost every socket in Europe is standardized. Yeah. But what do we see in Ghana? We have about, if I check this room, I'm sure we have about 5 different types of sockets.
Please don't check the room.
Yeah, so we need to start enforcing the standard. In fact, this building code you see here was put together by the Ghana Standards Authority. Wow. Yeah. So what it means is that they know what the standards are and they have to ensure that we are getting that on the market.
All right, great. We've had such a wonderful conversation tonight. Ms. Patience, please give us your final words, and Mr. Charles, your final words before we wrap up for tonight. I'll start off with you, 30 seconds, and then please end it as well.
So my final words would be, construction is an expensive venture.
Speak to the viewers, let them know.
Construction is an expensive venture. A lot of money is going into building. We do not expect people's investments to go down the drain and authorities just to set up committees. We have to evaluate the process and ensure that quality standards are being met and that at the end of the day, there's accountability in the construction industry.
Fantastic. Accountability. And yourself, Ms. Patience.
So mine is a plea to government and people in authority. We cannot get change until it starts with you. And some of us are ready to work. The Architecture Alliance, that's why we formed this. I believe the professional bodies are also available to help. It's also a plea to these professional bodies that let's not wait for the government to come to us. Let's sit together, come up with ideas, share it with the government, and let's see if something can happen. We need to be the change that we want to see. Thank you.
Be the change that you want to see. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. What an incredible show. And I'll see you next week right here on the Homeowners Show, 6 p.m. I'll see you then.
From champion dancer to musical powerhouse, she's a true force of nature. Hailing from Royal Kingdom of Dagbam, she weaves soul, tradition, and passion into every performance, taking Ghanaian music to the world stage.
Nigeria was not having artists like Ghana. Now they are leading the worldwide